Vasudeva Sudan Devam, Kamsachanuguramardhanam, Devaki Paramanandam, Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum, Gita Sugita Kartavya, Kimanye Shastra Vistarehi, Yasvayam Padmanabhasya, Mukha Padmatinisaruta, Kesharjamam Shakalasho, Dribunasandram, Sriman Risim Guruvariya Padatjavangam, Sriman Aranta Guruvariya Srutan Gunaptin, Sampat Kumar Guruvariyamaham Prabhati. Upanishads hold a prime position in Vedas. Similarly, in the epic Mahabharata, which is considered as Panchama Veda, Bhagavad Gita is treated as equivalent to its Upanishad. Lord Krishna uses the war between Pandavas and Kauravas as a tool to preach Arjuna, one of the Pandavas who is dearer to him, Krishna, in a symbolic way. The doctrine of bhakti as leading to the attainment to the highest reality. How this theme is set forth in the course of the work, according to Ramanuja, is worth consideration. The 18 chapters of the work, Bhagavad Gita, are divided into 3 groups, each group consisting of 6 chapters. The first 6 chapters are, in Sri Ramanuja's opinion, devoted to Karma Yoga, the exposition of the methods of self-realization on the part of the individual self. The second 6 chapters deal with Bhakti Yoga, which issues out of the self-realization described in the first group. As the object of this Bhakti is God, His nature, attributes, and glory are also dealt with in the central group. The third group of 6 chapters, known as Jnana Yoga, accomplishes an intellectual clarification of the matter thus far propounded. It clarifies the nature of Prakriti, Purusha, and Purushottama, the 3 metaphysical entities, and determines the absolute supremacy of the third entity, that is Paramatma, Purushottama. It also clarifies the nature of karma, bhakti, and jnana, bringing out the ultimacy of bhakti, and discusses several other issues also connected with these. We are in an evolving world and a large cosmos subject to cyclic order, as our Vedas and all the Puranas hold. This is not without a grand purpose. The direction of that evolution and its goal were well articulated by the poet of the Brihadaranyaka by Maharishi Yajnavalkya in immortal and inimitable words. Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritangamaya. It is, lead me from chaos to order. Let me emerge from darkness into light and show me a way out from mortality to immortality. This sums up the cry of all living things for all times. A philosopher who arrives at the conclusion that life is a mirage or a trap and that annihilation in the self is the best solution to the problems of life goes tangentially off this mark and misses the thrust of very thought and can only mislead us. Those others that look at life as a mass of mixed and rigid identities, unalterable in their helpless context, also miss the essence of Vedic teachings. An interpreter of the Gita has to keep this in mind while expounding the text orally or in writing. He has, of course, the liberty to violate this and those and lose his audience or readership, as indeed the case in quite of 10. Foundation ideas of the Gita are 10. Yajna, tapas, ahimsa, shraddha, sannyasa, punarjanma, varna and ashrama, equality, freedom and surrender, threefold yoga. Man can attain God by a yoga in three steps of activity, karma yoga, knowledge, jnana yoga, and devotion, bhakti yoga. While in this life and practicing his vocation in his own field or action and stage of spiritual evolution. Yoga is not an abnormal activity away from life, outside its legitimate scheme or sphere. It is one integral or synthetic yoga in three steps of activity, that is profession, supported by spiritual knowledge and inspired by devotion to God. Number two, knowledge that is self sustained by the fulfilling, life fulfilling activity and filled with devotion. And C, devotion, that is bhakti, sustained on activity and informed of his knowledge and the relation between the self and God. Janaka, Jadabharata, and Prahlada represent the three in the order as our text makes it clearly example. Janaka for Karma Yoga, Jadabharata for Jnana Yoga, and Prahlada for Bhakti Yoga. In this yoga, nothing is lost. Duty to the world, duty to oneself, and duty to God are all properly taken care of. Once again, I repeat, duty to the world, duty to oneself, and duty to God are all properly taken care of in this yoga. Surrender. This is a direct means to attain God as an effective alternative to the threefold yoga, as this latter, known as Bhakti Yoga, is understood in Ramanuja's tradition as a practice of one of the celebrated 32 modes of God intuition, Dvatrimshat Brahma Vidya, in the Upanishads, known as Vidyas, form of Upasana, Dhyana, Vedana, and Jnana, and so on, as Ramanuja has elaborated both in Sribhashyam and Vedartha Sangraha. Obviously, those that one neither eligible nor initiated have God only as their direct refuge through a teacher or preceptor. Plenty of hints of this path are scattered in Vedas, Upanishads, Gita, Itihasa Puranas, Agamas, and hymns of our viewers. So, this our circle of life, God is the only center. The self surprising the place of that center, the self usurping the place of that center, is the cause of all our eccentricities. To return or refund that every self back to that center is surrender, if a mathematical analogy can be allowed. The Gita is very vocal about it in chapter 18, verse 66. Thus, in the crux of Ramanuja's thought and the basic of his assurance that God is for all and his doors are open to all, irrespective of caste, sex, cadre differences. In scientific terms, we can call it subscription to the law of harmony and goodbye to cacophony, discord, dismay, disorder, and despair that are so abundant in the life otherwise. We must not we must note that The Gita emphasizes on the need for man to emerge into sattvic heights from rajasic and tamasic depths. Consequently, it pictures life as a mixture of the three qualities can be altered by right thinking, right conduct, and right knowledge through right company, right habits, right food, right study, and hard advances. No man is so fallen as to be beyond redemption and recovery, nor is anyone so pure as not to require only efforts for emancipation. Grace. God is graceful. We can have it by asking for it and living through the right way of life. It is unconditioned as well as conditioned, nirhetuka as well as sahetuka, depending on our stages of evolution and the context of life. There are three factors for salvation: God, grace, and Guru, that is teacher. The impediment is our karma. Fortunately, karma wears out on its own over a period of time, and when potencies weaken, that is the time for the grace of God and Guru to act. The other world, the Gita does believe in the other world of immortality and elaborates ways to that higher journey and of lower worlds to which there are other journeys. Chapter 8, God and World Vision. We said that we live in an interrelated world of endless grandeur and infinite possibilities. God is in the world as well as the world is in him. Chapter 10 reveals God's excellences as highlighted in his manifestations here. And chapter 11 reveals all that is in him as a cosmic vision. Forget this and you lose the directions of Gita's teachings. Next, the field, the knower and the all-knower. Kshetra, Kshetrajna and Paramatma. Another is Kshetrajna. This is perhaps the very key to the proper understanding of the Gita. Man is like a seed sown in the soil of his own body, his earth, his field of cultivation. The earth is God's endowment, the seed is his investment. The process of unfoldment of the potencies and possibilities of the seed through emergence from the earth with its instrumentality and its grace is the real drama on life's theatre. Such an emphatic statement is nowhere else to be found in Hindu scriptures. The 15th chapter tells us about the upside down tree. Except for a brief and rather obscure reference to this enigmatic archetype in the Kathopanishad and Taittiriya Aranyaka, we have nowhere else an elaboration of this profound mystic to mystic symbol and its contents. The Gita refers to a forward path as a return path, and it is important we grasp their real meanings and their complementary natures. Otherwise, we have a chance to go wide off the Gita's main teachings. The forward path concerns our mundane life, possessions, and desires for them, and numerous activities engaged towards acquirement of property, wealth, possession, power, etc., is what is known as karma marga, a larger meaning bestowed on the karma kanda of Vedic ritualists. It takes man away from God and towards station of endless pleasures and inch for property acquirement. It leads to downward cycle of sorrow, bereavement, and futile acquisitions. It's not forward at all in the real sense, and is hence pictured as a people tree turned upside down with uncertain roots no further than planted in the mind of man or the Annamaya Kosha or the Taittiriya Upanishad. The backward path, so to say, lies behind that mind sheet to search for which one has to eat this tree, root and branch, with the weapon of dispossession, asanga shastrena dashena chitva, and non-attachment to go nearer the anandamaya portion. But man has a duty to life, to his family, society, nation, and life at large. While discharging it, he should not lose sight of this other path. Hence, one has to strike a balance. The Gita does not advocate the negligence of either path, and exclusiveness is against its main teaching. Disinterested discharge of appointed duties can take care of both the worlds, Nishkama Karma. And both paths, excessors can only land us in avoidable troubles. A commentary that fails to do justice to any of these fundamental ideas of the Gita can only fail to appeal to human reason as well as sound scholarship, and so careful and steady attempts of reconciliation and synthesis are a must. Gita is a synthetic work of Hindu thought. Had there been no Gita, it would have been extremely difficult to arrive at a homogeneous system of thought based on the Upanishads, much more so on the extensive literature of the Vedas spread over the sacrifice or liturgical portions. The Gita rejects an exclusive ritualistic interpretation of the Vedas as the Yajnikas in the past, attempted in the past, and their followers reverted to in later times. It retains the thought in a larger improved sense, taking us back to spiritual meaning of the Samhita and Brahmanas, their action in a variety of forms of life, sustaining professions aimed at bringing spirituality even to routine activity. Even biological or physical organic activity like breathing, breath control, raising temples, cooking, eating, pilgrimage, penance, study, and so on can be yajnas. It equates the very concept of sacrifice with what it called karma yoga as action harnessed in the service of knowledge production. God, in the first instance, created Tejas, up, Anna, as three basic deities: fire, water, and food. Tejas, up, and Anna, as providing for the bodily habitation of the soul. And in that evolution of matter containing the five elements earth, fire, air, water, and space, each contained the other in proportions of 1 is to 5. Like in water, 4 by 5 is water, and the remaining 1 by 5 is shared with the other 4, and so on. How does Gita reconcile? It uses the terminology of both Sankhya and Yoga, like avyakta, mahat, nirvana, ahankara, but rejects the limited meaning at the conclusion level. Take this equation, for example. Ekam sankhencha yogancha. Yapashyati sapashyati. Sankhya and yoga are essentially one as discipline and in goal. The discerning only can understand this. Modern Sankhya and Yoga are in fact two systems and do not agree with this equation of the Gita. The Gita ridicules their ancestors as childish. In terms of aims and results, achievements and expectations, also the Gita idea radically varies from those of Sankhya. Whereas the Sankhyan would say that release from the body for the soul is itself liberation, a rather negative concept. The Gita would say that the body is the temple of God, and emergence of the soul out of it is after a process of evolution to whatever extent it has happened as an opportunity offered by God, and good achievement shall never be lost. and all is accumulated on the way to perfection until it happens at the choice of the soul. The world of matter is my great originating field. Mamayvamsho jiva bhutaha. I am the soil of the soul as seed in it. Aham bija praprita. Coming to yoga, we see the differences between the Patanjali system and the earlier Adhyatma Yoga, of which the Gita is an improved version. Instead of the 8 minimal steps, yama, niyama, etc., the Gita Charya promotes every act in life to step of yoga, thus giving us a maximal vision and a liberal as well as natural elevated interpretation of all life as yoga. It is no longer a detached or special activity. You can practice it everywhere and always while seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, moving, cleaning, breathing, shouting, receiving, rejecting, walking, sleeping. Prashnanne, Jigranne, Swapanne, Unmishanne, that sloka is interpreted. It is a must that you must control the senses and try to see yourself away as a doer, not the deed. The soul and nor the body are its instrument or factual potential faculties. Thus, you gain self control, and this takes care of most of the lower steps of Patanjali Yoga. Yoga, in Gita's view, is not the annihilation of the mind or its arrest or dissociation from God and higher states of bliss, but rather a promotion of all faculties of the personality to a godly state and the perfection of union with Him. Here is yoga easy to practice and achieve. Test for yourself about its achievements on the way if only you have determination, discrimination, and the desire to reach your goal perfection. You require a guru, no doubt, but who can be better than God Himself who is ready to serve you in your chosen role? Here is yoga fulfillment and not the nihilist as Sankhya led into the hands of the godless Buddhists and others later on. Let us come to the idea of renunciation or sannyasa and see how the Gita improves on the ashtamic ideal as the fourth state of evolution on the way to perfection. The Smriti texts following the Vedas have prescribed four stages for the evolution of man: brahmacharya, householdership; brahmacharya, celibacy, pupilship, schooling under preceptor; householdship, marriage, management of family, and feeding guests; recluseship, vanaprastha, or proceeding to the forest as the first step of detachment from relations, property, work as a means to livelihood, and from a hundred varieties of sorrow arising from attachment. And finally, total renunciation, abdication from life, and devotion of all energy and time to God and the moment of union with Him. But this is only for a Brahmin. The warrior, the merchant or farmer, or the laborer, and even women folk of all walks of life are exempted from these ideals in their totality. Some are allowed the first two or three only, others not even that much. The idea that life must run as a wheel and all professions cannot come to a dead stop all of a sudden. Secondly, there are other lives, that is janmas, to take care of those untrodden steps or stages in life. Perfection is not the achievement of one life. You cannot have it for the asking. But even so, great principles like Yudhishthira, princes like Yudhishthira, had undue predilection towards unwarranted renunciation, as fatigued minds often seek rest at dangerous moments of life for our collective living. How can there be abdication? How could there be abdication from duty in what you call essential services. A policeman, a warrior, a doctor, a social volunteer, a coffin bearer, or priest cannot take rest away from appointed duties. This is a problem often discussed at length in crucial context of the epic. So the Gita offers a larger, more natural, liberal, and easier to follow concept of sannyasa for all to practice without disrupting the social order. This is a new synthesis. The concept is retained, but the context altered, enlarged in its scope and meaning to cover all life. The Gita is totally silent on the ideas of sannyasa as prescribed by the Smriti texts. It is no rejection, but absorption to a greater concept. See this altered meaning. Giving up of selfish activity or attributing their motive force to and owning God as the impeller is sannyasa. Sannyasa literally means keeping all yours in someone as a caretaker, depositing your all in someone whose confidence you have as your caretaker. It means, in effect, self surrender, unburdening of yourself in terms of doership, ownership, enjoyer of fruits of your actions, and reducing yourself voluntarily to his agency. It means dispossession of all your responsibilities and cares. The Gita itself calls this Sarvasankalpa Sannyasa. It is not renunciation of action as such, but only a mental attitude of detachment from ego. The Gita gives the same meaning to Naishkarmya also. There is both improvement and reconciliation. Mm. The concept of avatar, of divine descent of God, participating in human history to give it a healthy direction in confusing times, is again a bold restatement after their mention in the Vedas and the Puranas. The Smritis are more concerned with the ordering of human behavior, and therefore we do not expect them to expand on things looked at from God's hand. The Gita, too, is a Smriti text, but with a difference in as much as it explains life from both ends, the human and the godly. This is a magnificent effort as it removes confusion caused by the Sankhyanis, the ritualists, the atheists, and absolutists, isolationists, both Vedic and unvedic, or an anti-Vedic. We can point out many other attempts of such bold statements, reconciliations, clarifications, and synthesis throughout the Gita. These are merely highlights. See, Krishna Avatara has many aspects revealed in one. A. Revolutionary come down on earth to re-establish Dharma at a crucial juncture of mankind history. Number two, an eminent fighter in the cause of justice, Krishna, justice, law, and order, and no mere witness as yoga philosophers and absolute Vedantins would want him to remain. Number three, neutral to opposite forces and at the same time asserting the right, the lawful, the justified impartiality. Four, a divine teacher in a human form. Five, a reformer come down to remove corruptions in the gas or practice or the ancient law, redeeming the innocent from the clutches of cruel dictators and opportunists. Five, a synthesizer of the best that has come down to heredity in contemporary thinking and the original thoughts needed to make all that comprehensive meaning integral and artistically unified so that one can deduce the needed instructions at any time of crisis. G. A great modernizer of ancient wisdom in non-technical language, employing poetry as his vehicle of thought. Next, a visionary who can draw up a plan for the future of mankind. Next, a romantic builder who weeds out stubs in the garden of time mercilessly, but artistically at the same time, like a surgeon in a hospital theater, restoring health to the patient, like a gardener who does not sacrifice his aesthetic sense in misplaced compassion for outgrowths that have served their tune. Romance, adventure, aesthetic grandeur pervades the whole of Gita, revealing the personality behind in all this unique blend. The creative scheme of life, enunciated and elaborated here, have no parallel in the entire Hindu thought. The main thrust of Gita's thought flow. One, Arjuna's initial situation, his misgivings, and yearning for a proper conviction, driving him on to his duty, his prayer for a right motive force, failing which he is in danger of relapsing into escapism, harmful asceticism, inaction, pacifism, and excessive quietism must never be lost sight of. It is this that the Gita is obliged to address, answer, and retrieve the victim from the diseases named here. So the Gita comes as a bold text advocating duty above all other considerations. It is a manual for right action and not exemption or escape from duty. People who try to hang on to the Gita, their own ghosts of illusionism and escapism as thoughts superimposed, have therefore done immense damage to its main teachings. It is to satirize this trend, the great Lokamanya Balagangadhara Tilak wrote his immortal Gita Rahasya in Marathi, which was subsequently translated into English. Also, Karma Yoga, therefore, is the main plank on which the complex meaning structure the Gita stands. We have to accommodate all other teachings of this complex text in that main context only. Detailed analysis of the human personality of the elements, mind, intellect, and all faculties, the body as field with its triple gunas, leading to a study of modes of Shraddha and so on, are all to reinforce this main teaching to clear all possible doubts in the context of confusing thoughts arising from the Sankhyan way of ritualist's way. Number four, Vishwarupa, cosmic vision of the Lord, is again to show man's proper place in the divine scheme of things. Number five, in short, even violating or ignoring the integrity of the Gita's main teaching will be doing a great harm, not merely to the Gita, also to Hindu thought and humanity at large, which needs the teaching today in its entirety unvandalized. The role of right commentator. If the Gita is so exquisite, compact, and so well articulate in its teaching, where is the need for a commentator, one may ask? The answer, again, is complex, requiring some detailed analysis. The Gita has a structural pattern leading the novice from point to point of heights, aspect wise, implication wise, as well as winding staircase or steps leading to a hilltop shrine. The chapters are well connected like the Adhikaranas of the Brahma Sutra. To my best knowledge, except Sri Ramanuja, none has paid attention to this cumulative meaning and tried to interconnect the achieved meanings chapter wise. Gita is a yogic text. The commentator would also be expected to be yogi to whom its excellences are available only a yogic height. Vedanta is often dubbed as philosophy of religion by Westerners to equate theology as distinct from philosophy, pure, since the time of Locke, Hobbes, Descartes, Kant, Spinoza, and others. There is no such demarcation in Indian thought. Europeans only called all sciences of today as natural science and all thoughts as natural history, to include what we know called social sciences, physical sciences, and biological sciences. These distinctions are artificial, serve no purpose, and have vanished today, obviously. Negative interpretations of life can hardly be entertained in the context of the Gita, not only Sankhya, but also any other Eastern or Western systems. Matter or the world around is no contamination on God. Man is not a product of blind determinism on the part of mindless nature. It is the very instrument of man's evolution, an aid provided by providence, Daivi Maya. It is man who makes it Mohini or Asuri against his own self interests willfully by misuse of God invested faculties. This direction is expressed throughout the Gita. A commentator who goes against this will only mislead us. The Sthiraprajna description cannot be taken as a static mind annulled or mind annihilated states of subject objectless experience. Whatever it means, this runs against the main context of the Gita. It is supremely concentrated moment of contemplation before any chosen action, untrammeled by extraneous sensuous or other irrelevant considerations. It is like a moment when rivers fulfill an ocean without swelling. It is the analogy here only makes it clear God, love, and self knowledge cannot be treated as disturbing extraneous factors here. And the text is expressed here. It is called Brahmi Sthiti, a God filled state of mind. To equate it with something like a Buddhistic nihil or equate it with Jnana Yoga or Kaivalya would be an unforgivable distortion. A commentator has to reconcile to the main Vaishnava character of the text and an epitome of the Bhagavatic philosophy as embedded in Agamas and Puranas and the epics. The Saguna texts of Upanishads needed reconciliation with the so-called Nirguna texts to dispel the wrong notions that the former was for the gullible, unimaginative, emotive understanding that could not go beyond finiteness, and that the latter were the more daring, the more intellectual, and seekers of the infinite or the indefinite, so that it led to the view of two Brahmans untenable on any Upanishadic thought. The Mahavakyas needed reconciliation with the Laghuvakyas or statements with minor imports which could be ignored in system making. Aparavidya grasped as the non-higher intuition by the absolutists, and Paravidya as pure and unadulterated intuition required reconciliation as the Mundakopanishad, from which context this classification Christ calls both form as Vidyas only. They are, as Ramanuja shows, a twofold Vidya in one, with two stages of Brahman, grasp or understanding. While the absolutist rejects the Aparavidya as avidya, meant for only rejection, including all the Samhita, Brahmana, and other texts as of inferior import as compared to the pure Upanishadic texts teaching about the formless Brahman. Ramanuja shows that apara is indirect perception held through a teacher or learnt through a text in one's pupilship days, and para is direct apprehension of God in yogic experience based on the same. So there is the difference of secondary experience and primary experience corresponding to Savikalpaka and Nirvikalpaka modes in yoga. He quotes verses from Vishnu Purana to resolve the tangle. The place of bhakti in Vedanta is retorted to the heights of Upasana, Brahmavidya, a mode of Brahman intuition, back and away from a debased earlier interpretation, or it is a mere mind cleaning process of the dull written ones who cannot do away without an imagined object of worship or meditation. Ramanuja repudiates the distinction between two kinds of release or salvation, one while in life known as Sadeha Mukti, and the other beyond life, an actual movement away from space and time, or Videha Mukti. There is no such thing literally as Jivan Mukti. What is meant when the Upanishad says, here and now you can attain God, is that you can have tastes of moments of God union while in yogic moments. But it is not in the nature of things to have both as bound state of experience, a finiteness in space and time, and a release from it while still in it. This is a sheer impossibility. God as a unity, the unifier, the all inclusive and all pervasive divinity. Perhaps the greatest service of Ramanuja to philosophy as Vedanta is the rehabilitation of God beyond sectarianism, beyond the very absolutism, beyond voices of cacophony, and the re-establishment of divinity as one in all and all in one, the one in many and the many in one. Unfortunately, interpreters of Vedanta to the West in the middle of the last century, like Dr. Radhakrishnan, Brother Hirena, and other warriors of the absolute school of Vedanta, and their counterparts like Max Muller, are disciplined to accept this status of Ramanuja as Vedantic interpreter and have tended, tended to dub him as a sectarian Vaishnava theologian at the most, contributing to popular Hinduism, bringing God to the hearts of credulous mobs that needed temple worship and some sort of social communion with God at its center. While the Vedas say Brahman is one, but the wise speak of him as many. What is meant is the unity of God conceptually and his manliness functionally in individual graphs. Infinity is felt alone and is experienced in finite graphs as many at the practical and actual levels of life. Mischievous categories, untenable logically, textually, and experientially, were introduced in the post Buddhist period in pre Ramanuja days to divide this unity into respectable abstraction and a disreputable practicality for the dull minded, reserving the earlier luxury for those that tended towards atheism under Buddhism. Actually, this abstraction was a concession to those who dared not visualize God as a grand personality holding all the universe in his majesty, comprehensiveness, and supreme meaningfulness. Synthesis, perpetual readjustment, reassertion of the eternal values basic to life, as discovered by the ageless seers of the past, these are the hallmarks of Hinduism. Vyasa, Sri Krishna, and Ramanuja are some of the best exemplars of this process, and naturally, there is identity of use and effects. Hmm. Ultimately, what is to be understood is Sri Krishna uses three poetic images, suggest three shades and stages of how evil covers the mind of man. That a fire in the altar being enveloped by smoke and even engendered along with the kindling of that fire invariably. Dhume navriyate vanhihi. That of dust on a mirror which gets settled on it with all your repeated attempts to keep it clean of dust again and again. And of extra flesh growth in a womb that surrounds an embryo, even in the act of conception of child at the very birth. यथोदर्शो मलेन च धूमेनाव्रियते बह्निः. Now, like that, Avatara Adhyaya, where Krishna teaches about the nature of his descents, purpose of these descents, and their timings of manifestations. Or Avatara's real resolution. Is Krishna Avatara real or mirage or mere hallucination? We have to note in passing, unfortunately, two negative views. Shankara views it as a mere illusion or appearance. Madhva follows, I appear to be born as one among those born. Jayatitha acts, this adduces the reason for the illusion of avatar. Contrast Ramanuja, who notes that avatars are as real as life, and it is the actual manifestation of God in historical crossroads, vicissitudes, crisis, without his sanctifying his divinity, and at the same time assuming a role in history in terms of real life. Sri Krishna is as real as Arjuna, for instance, and it is to emphasize that undeniable reality. Arjuna is mentioned as an example in this very context. Read the original case. Bahuni me vititani, janmani tavacha Arjuna. Many are my descents, like your own numerous births. It means. Note that Arjuna does not doubt his reality and his birth. What he doubts is how could Sri Krishna have taught Karma Yoga to Vivaswan in the beginning of Manvantara? How do we explain the gap of this time? It is this question that the Lord is answering and not the needless doubt whether Arjuna is real or unreal. This question is now irrelevant. But what is the meaning of Krishna's bringing it in? Ramanuja adds, Tavacha iti drishtantaya upadanacha. It is meant as a parallel example to justify the point of view that Krishna as real as Arjuna standing before him. Protection of the good, the saintly, the pious, and the devout. Paritranaya sadhunam. Destruction of the evil, the devilish, the ungodly, demonic. Vinashaya dushkritam. The establishment of the right order and the law of dharma. Dharma samsthavanarthaya. Avatara. Shankara and Madhva do not seem to have attached the particular significance to this order or preference in so delineating the purpose of the avatar. Routine comments have been made in passing by them, as all Hindus take for granted. Actually, Madhva adds an adversory note contradictory to the intentions expressed in the verse to the effect that the protection of the world and the righteous need not be through the very instrumentality of the avatar. Actually, God can achieve these as a matter of a leela or sportive act by his very nature, as he is without someone to direct him as from above. He is such as to act as he wills. This reinforces the view of Avatara as illusion. The example of Arjuna's reality, the specific order of purposes explicitly stated here, have no value. Ultimately, as God can achieve anything by mere will or wish, like a magician bringing something out of nothing, or getting anything to vanish out of reality. Creation, its rules, principles have no bindings on God, even as sportive acts. Ramanuja comments, sadhus are the best among God's devotees who cannot live without him even for a moment, who actually long to see him even with physical eyes, hear his divine exploits, and so on. And Ramanuja, I depend for my existence verily on such a devotee. Why? Because just as he cannot exist without me for the endurance of his body and soul, I too cannot live without him. He is my life bearer. Therefore, he is my very soul. Jnanitu Atmaiva Mematam. Krishna statements. Ultimately, verse 29 states that God treats all equally and has no preference of any kind in terms of caste, acquirement of laws, opposability, or sex, adds Ramanuja. Verse 30 states that even the worst evil doer can attain him if he can devote himself steadfastly and come back to the order of life as prescribed by sage. Verse 31 clarifies that such an erring soul retracing his lost steps can become a real devotee is a question of time, duration, that is not now important. What is important is that he is on his way back to God. Hence, a devotee shall not perish. Verse 32 raises a common ignorant question to answering. The world of ignorant people believes that women folk, merchants, and servants with no fixed duties are so born and are condemned to these castes or states because of overwhelming sins to their discredit. So, is there any hope for them? Does the guarantees of verse 31 apply to them? So, the nature of God's impartiality and reciprocal love in such is such that this trust is like what you have between your father and son. What about the women folk, the merchant community, and the Shudras class? Desaka says this mention of these categories by Krishna is not to be taken as personal view that these belong to the sinning clan or at all. He is merely summing up a generally wrong notion prevalent among the unlearned and ignorant. He is disposing of the misconception even. The verb syuhu is very important as it implies a hypothetical case as maintained by the opening. This dispels the wrong notion. Sri Krishna himself considers that these are sinners. That may be your view. But even then, I shall liberate them if they but take refuge in me. This is the meaning. Ultimately, the fact to be concluded is all, in spite of all manners of good and evil entering, God reveals two ways of absorbing them, nevertheless differently. God shelters all the good, reaching no saturation and turning away none to their disappointment. So as to say, I am sorry, I am full, so get out. He is the all, refuge, always for all good. That is, the meaning is the sea image. But so far as evil is concerned, he destroys it then and there, allowing no room, no shelter, no patience, and not even entertaining them. That is how moths die futile deaths. So there is no substitute for the glass. One must read in full along with the commentary of the Gita by Ramanuja for the proper appreciation of numerous beauties like the ones that have been instanced here. So saying, I will complete the quintessence of Gita as an introduction to the first chapter, where Gita is for improvement, self-realization, and God-realization. Tasman Grahamaram Yati Hekravadhyamam Lakshmi Vallam Vande Guru Paramparam.